Hello everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing very well. Today we're going to be talking about how to express a character with creature design while still making them emotionally relatable. Now before I start, I'd like to make note that the characters I am painting today are not mine and that the owners will be credited in the description. And if they happen to be watching this video, thank you guys so much for letting me use your characters, it is very appreciated. Now what do I mean when I say expressing a character in creature design while still making them emotionally relatable? I mean, how do I effectively design a creature that is convincing to the audience that they are that creature while still keeping them emotionally relatable to the audience so that they can see that even though my character is a creature or a chimera or some kind of hybrid, that they still have their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas, and that this is a character that I will be able to look at on screen and follow their character arc and journey. First, we're going to be talking about merging anatomy. Now this is where creature design in normal design is more complicated than when it comes to just creating and designing human characters. You're going to be thinking about the anatomy of both things that you're going to be combining and how to combine them effectively enough so that they are inherently inseparable from each other and you've essentially created a new thing. Now, to create an effective fusion, you have to understand the anatomy of both things that you're going to be combining together. The more thorough your understanding of what you're going to be combining, the more effective the combination is going to be. And this does not necessarily only mean like biological understanding, understanding how the animal digests food, their diet, or where they live, even though all of that is very helpful information, and I do encourage you to understand the different creatures you're designing as thoroughly as possible. Your main focus should be understanding the mechanical aspects of how they move, how they're structured in their skeleton, and understanding the exterior aspects of the character. Furred, feathered, skinned, their patterns, the way they look, their teeth, things like that. Understanding the anatomy of those creatures in that way, in the most mechanical way possible, will allow the fusion to be more convincing, even if you think that you're already familiar with those creatures. If it's a human and a dog, for example, you might think, oh, I know humans and I know dogs. I know them well enough. I don't need to understand or research them. I can just go ahead and combine them. That may not necessarily be the case, because it's one thing to interact with those creatures or interact with those beings, but it's a completely different thing to combine them, especially when it comes to design. So please always do your research when it comes to understanding these creatures, and that research will only make your design all the stronger and better down the line. Now this does raise the question of practicality and reality versus looks and style. What that means is, how do I balance what is realistic with what is stylistic? What's going to look good versus what's more accurate to reality? Now, again, this question will all depend on for what you're making your creature, but in general, the fusion of the anatomy should be inherently tied to the style choices and the purpose of your character. The key to an effective character in general, not just in creature design, is for that character to have an explicit purpose and singular idea, and that everything around that idea and in the character serves that purpose. So when it comes to your creature design, you don't necessarily always have to side with what is realistic as opposed to what is stylistic, because maybe what is stylistic would better serve your character. On the other hand, sometimes what is more realistic would serve the character, but that is up to your own discretion. Now, when finding the style that you're going to use in portraying your creature, meaning how am I going to stylize this creature, from what things am I going to take from, you want to research the culture of the creature that you're using, where they came from, where were they invented, what folklore and legends are related to your creature, and what common tropes are associated with the creature that you're going to be creating, because there have always been interpretations of everything we've ever thought of before. And it's not always the goal to make something necessarily 100% original, but make something that's creative and that maybe someone has not seen before. So in understanding those tropes and what's already been established, and being familiar with the history of the creature that you're designing, you can make a more effective interpretation. Now second, I'd like to talk about the writing of your character. Now, as I stated earlier in the video, writing your character and designing your character should both be considered and are inseparable. Your writing should just be as strong as the design, otherwise both will suffer. So when writing your character, particularly when it comes to creature design, there are a couple of questions you can ask yourself to make the process easier and to make sure you've created an effective character. For example, you can ask, is the creature aspect necessary? In other words, in what ways does this make your character who they are? If you change the creature that they are, would that change them as a person? If the answer is no, then maybe you should consider in how your writing can better tie into the creature design. If they are not a different person because their creature design is taken away from them or changed, then the writing doesn't tie in with the design strongly enough. Without the visuals, would your character be the same person? This is another important question to ask, because sometimes we can have a really nifty design and it'll look really cool, but because the character isn't written in a way that's strongly enough tied to the design, or they're just not an interesting character, that design falls flat. So you have to write your character with the creature design in mind, and that part of their person has to be essential to who they are. Think again to the example of the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. If he was not the Beast, we wouldn't even have a story. All of his mannerisms, his personality would be completely different. And him being a beast is tied into the narrative. There's a reason why he's a beast. The world reflects how he behaves and why he is the way he is. It's all tied together, and that reflects a strong character. Now, another question that's important to ask is, how much creature to person is your character? Now, this is different from the earlier question of, should I be more realistic or stylistic? This question pertains strictly to the character themselves and how the world sees them, accommodates them, and how they view themselves. Meaning that, how does your character behave on the spectrum of animal that's purely instinctual and needs-based to a person that has an understanding of morals, reflection of thoughts, and has the ability to regret and understand what is right and wrong? That place that your character will fall on that spectrum reflects who they are and also reflects how they're going to look and behave. Does your character want to be human? That would reflect in how they'd look. Does your character not want to be human? Is your character a misunderstood monster? Or is your character a person trapped in a human body? There's a lot of different things and different questions that you have to be aware about that will reflect in your character's design, but are hinged on having strong writing. And lastly, once you do have an effective character design and a story written up for your character, what do? Well, you get feedback and critique. Look at other opinions. Get your friends to look at your design. Compare your character to other characters of the same race or similar race in media. Look at professional concept artists. Look at how they have interpreted that character and the writing that they've given those interpretations of the creature. Study up on other stories within your species. Study up on your own story. Reflect on what you've written. And compare the different versions of your character that you're going to create. Because you're not going to go with your first draft. Make a first draft and then a second and a third. Line them up. Look at them. Compare what you've changed. Have you made it better or just different? And if you follow these steps, you will find yourself with a pretty strong character design. Now, everything I've said is from my own perspective and experience, but there are many wonderful resources online for character design, writing, and creature design that I would very much encourage you to look up, and don't be afraid of getting feedback or being wrong in the method that you've been using so far. I'm probably wrong in some respects, and that is good, and it's all part of the learning process, and it's very important that you take that seriously and that you let yourself learn so that way you can make much better work in the future. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that this video was helpful for you today. I do have notes that I write to accompany the videos that I talk about, so if you'd like me to post those notes on Instagram, please let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys have a great week. Bye!